Hello, welcome back to my channel. This video is going to be all about routines and rhythms and systems. Whew, that's a mouthful. It feels like I'm saying like lions and tigers and bears, oh my.
Lions and tigers and bears.
The Wizard of Oz is one of my mom's all-time favorite movies, so I feel like I watched it a lot growing up. Anyways, this topic was submitted directly from one of you. Every summer, I do an annual survey where I ask for some feedback and I get tons of video ideas from that survey. And one of you said, can you do a video about systems versus routines versus rhythms? And at first I was like, I don't know. That is not something I feel like I am not necessarily qualified to speak on, but like, I don't know what the answer is. And so I've had it on my video idea list since I reviewed the annual survey like in July. And here we are, I'm finally tackling it. But before we get into it, I wanna start by saying that I am sharing, I'm recording this as I always am from my point of view, right? This is how my life operates from a place of routines and rhythms and systems. And so you might take away from this and be like, well, that's not how I view it. Awesome. Then you do it what works best for you. I'm not sitting here telling you this is the way that you have to view these things. I am sharing with you how I view these things, okay? So, but that also means like, don't come at me and tell me that I'm wrong, because this is my opinion. So, a routine, we're gonna do some definitions. Whenever I do a video on like a specific topic or like word, I always like to tap into the definition before we jump in. So, the first one we're gonna start with is routine. A routine is a set of habits that are performed regularly and predictably. We actually did a whole series on routines last year, so I will re-link that if you're interested. It was a 4-week series. It was like defining routines, implementing them, sticking with them, and I don't remember what the last one was, but it's a whole series on routines. So I'm not gonna like totally repeat myself from that series. Now, some of the other definitions of routines also said that they are usually structured and time-bound, often done at the same time in the same order. If you have ever heard me talk about routines, you know that I don't believe that that's true. I do not think that your routine has to be done at the same time every day. I don't think you need to do the exact same steps in the exact same order for it to be considered a routine. To me, a routine means that it's something that you do consistently, which is exactly in the definition, right? A set of habits or tasks performed regularly. Regularly means a lot of different things. It doesn't mean that I get up at 6 a.m. at the same time every day and I do these exact same steps in this exact same order. That is not how my morning routine looks, and I don't think it has to look that way to be successful. So if you are somebody who feels like you kind of strayed or like steered away from the word routine because it felt like too rigid or like too much in a box, maybe hear me out a little bit. Before I go on that a little bit more, let's quickly jump to the definition of rhythm. Again, this is coming from the internet. So the rhythm as it relates to routines, not like rhythm from like a musicality standpoint, is the ebb and flow of activities, typically not as rigid as routines, not as time-bound, often guided by how you feel about things. Now, what I love about that is you have probably also heard me talk about going with the flow from an energy standpoint, right? If your energy levels are at a certain amount, maybe you do a little bit more of a step versus a little bit less of a step. But to me, I can do that within the confines of my routine. I don't need to call it a rhythm. I could call it a routine and decide that today my energy levels are extra high and I'm gonna clean more, and tomorrow my energy levels are a little bit low, so I'm gonna cut cleaning completely from my routine, right? I think for these two specifically, they really are interchangeable. I think you can look at them in whatever light makes the most sense for you. If you like calling it a routine because it provides that structure and you like that kind of consistency to it, or you're just like me and I can't hear the word rhythm without thinking about a tap class, use the word routine. If you think routines are too rigid and structured and you need a little bit more flexibility and the ability to go with the flow, call it a rhythm. But I truly believe that you can operate in the same way with both of them. You can have something that you do, steps, habits, you do consistently, that you decide they can ebb and flow with your energy levels, and you can do them in the way that works best for you in that given moment. And also know you don't have to pick one or the other. If there are scenarios that you like you think, I like saying AM and PM routine, but everything else to me is more of a rhythm, right? A cleaning rhythm. and whatever all the other examples are. There's so many different types of routines and different types of rhythms, but again, I think you can interchange them. And so I don't think you have to figure out what both of them mean to you. Again, I can't hear the word rhythm and not be thrown back into a high school tap class. So I don't have any rhythms, right? I have a lot of routines. You've heard me talk about a lot of different routines, right? I uploaded a video a couple weeks ago about my recurring tasks. I do videos on my morning routine and my evening routine all the time. I love a routine. And I believe that routines can have flexibility, and my routines do have flexibility. I do sometimes go with the flow. I do listen to my energy levels. I also recently uploaded a video about that, right? I do have things that go different ways depending on the day, just like the definition of rhythm. Okay, let me hop off my routine rhythm soapbox and let's talk about systems. So definition is a collection of interrelated parts or elements that work together to achieve a common goal or function. That's a lot of words. But really what it comes down to is systems is multiple parts, multiple things that are all coming together to achieve a common goal. Typically, systems are a lot more complex. So a big example for me, I feel like, is my planning system. I've talked about that before. I have a whole video on my planning system. To me, that is a system because it's got different routines, it's got different products, it's got different rhythms, you want to call them that, but mostly it's multiple routines and products and tasks and tools all combined together to achieve the goal of planning my life consistently. Typically, systems take a lot more effort to set up. Now, don't get me wrong, routines take time to grow. I talked about all about that in the routine series that we did. But systems are even more complicated than that. Systems are typically also going to take a little bit more trial and error to figure out what works for you. Routines can take trial and error too, but typically, at least for me, when I try a new step in a routine, it only takes me a couple days to either feel like, yeah, that clicked and that worked, or nope, that didn't work and I need to try something else. Systems usually take a little bit longer for me to try and figure out if it works for me and if it's something that's going to continue to be a part of my system. Systems also, see, this is true for routines too. I feel like my notes here, this always happens, y'all. Let me know if you can relate. When I start talking, things come out of my head. So one of the things I wrote down is systems will need to be adjusted as things evolve. Well, so will routines. Routines are constantly in flux. I think it was because I was trying to not reiterate everything I said about routines last year. They all need to be adjusted, right? Life changes, your life changes. There's like a quote, the only constant is change. That is so true in life, and therefore your routines, rhythms, and systems all need to be able to change because of it. And so the harder part is that systems are usually a bigger monster that you've got to kind of untangle and figure out what you need to adjust and change. At the end of it, there's probably a lot of overlap, right? When I think about certain things like my cleaning routine, I probably could call it a cleaning system, right? Because it's got a lot of different components that are like little smaller routines, but I just call it a routine. And there's probably something else that you call a routine or a rhythm or a system that a different person or I would call one of the other words. I feel like there's a lot of interchangeable things here. At the end of the day, you've always got to do what works best for you and not worry about what other people are calling it. I feel like that is one of the double-edged swords of all of us sharing these types of things, routines and systems on the internet, is that you can get all these awesome ideas and get so inspired, and then you also fall into this comparison trap. And you're like, well, they have this entire cleaning system, or they have this big planning routine, or they have whatever it is, and you feel like you need the same thing, and then we get caught up in what it's called, as opposed to just thinking like, no, what is it that they're trying to achieve? They're trying to keep their house clean the way that they like it. If I did that, what would that look like, right? It doesn't have to look the same for you, and not worrying so much about what everybody else is doing or what everybody else is calling it, and doing what works best for you. I feel like that's the conclusion of everything always, is like, you've got to do what works best for you, and you've got to call it what makes sense for you to call it. So I don't know if I really answered this question, because ultimately I feel like my conclusion is like, they're all the same to me, kind of. And at the end of the day, it is figuring out how you can do things consistently to achieve your goals. That's what we're trying to get to. So if you watched all the way to the end of this video, comment with a sun emoji, because I talked about my morning routine a lot in this video. And if you liked it, if you found this helpful, or if you are now just more confused, please still give it a thumbs up, and then let me know down in the comments what confused you, and maybe we just need to talk about it a little bit more. But that's gonna be the end of this video. That's the end of my thoughts and my ideas. So if you're new here, also please click that subscribe button. I upload new videos every week focused on helping you achieve your goals. Thank you so much for watching. That sounded funny. I was sick like 2 weeks ago. Is that cough ever gonna go away? I don't know. Of activities. Activities? Unless you want to, and let me say that again.